Welcome to the Enabling Buying Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Kirch, and I'm grateful you're here. Enabling Buying is brought to you by Collavia.com, your all-in-one sales enablement platform. In sales and in life, we all encounter moments when the odds seem stacked against us. Maybe you're behind on your sales goals. Maybe you're navigating a difficult season or facing challenges that few people truly understand. Those are the moments that test our resilience and our belief in what's possible. There's a great lyric from the classic Journey song, Don't Stop Believin', that has always resonated with me. Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. It's a reminder that remarkable journeys often begin in ordinary places. Today's guest embodies that spirit. Growing up in a small town in Michigan, Maranda Dziekonski didn't have a roadmap to executive leadership. Through perseverance, determination, and a commitment to continual growth, she built an extraordinary career that's taken her to the highest levels of customer leadership. Her story is a reminder that where you start doesn't determine where you finish, especially if you never stop believing in what's possible. Maranda is a chief customer officer, executive coach, and leadership author with more than 25 years of experience building and leading customer-facing organizations. Now, she's been part of 5 successful company exits, including 1 unicorn, and has been recognized as a top 50 CCO to watch and a top 25 customer success influencer multiple times. Now, her work focuses on leadership, career growth, customer success, and the human side of building high-performance teams. She's also the author of Saying the Hard Parts Out Loud, coming out in the winter of 2026. It's a book about resilience, belonging, leadership, and finding the courage to leave what no longer serves you. Today, we'll talk about building trust, creating lasting customer relationships, leading through change, and why most successful organizations understand that winning the customer is only part of the beginning. Please join me in welcoming Maranda Dziekonski to the Enabling Buying Podcast. Maranda Dziekonski, it's so nice to have you on the Enabling Buying Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. You and I had a really nice conversation the other day, and it's really interesting. You've actually built a pretty amazing career, and you've got a book coming out that we're going to talk about as well. And you've been kind of open about the fact you grew up in not necessarily the most fruitful environment, and you've been able to build a really powerful career in enterprise sales and enterprise work, and it's really inspiring. So glad you're on. I know there's a lot of people listening that are in either sales or sales leadership roles that they're facing transition, they're facing hurdles with the market the way it is today, and so I think there's just going to be some great takeaways. So your upcoming book, Saying the Hard Parts Out Loud, sounds like it's really a story about your journey and your ability to overcome. So can you tell a little bit about the book?
Yeah. You nailed it. It is about my journey, which started in rural Michigan. I won't age myself, but we'll say I'm a few decades into my journey. And I was a farm girl, born out in rural Michigan. In not fantastic circumstances. I talk a lot about, food insecurity, us not having running water or plumbing in our house for many years, and, some of the unkind things that happened within the walls of our home. And, my journey from that to moving myself as a single mom with my son, who is now 25 years old, out to the San Francisco Bay Area and starting my journey in tech. I also share some stories. I anonymize everything in there, but I share some stories of things that I've experienced and what I've learned about those experiences. So I wouldn't say it's a memoir. I wouldn't say it's not a memoir. I wouldn't say it's a leadership book. I wouldn't say it's not a leadership book. It's kind of like in the middle, right?
Yeah.
I'm sharing a lot of myself there. And I'll tell you, I'm scared to put this out, but it's also very liberating.
Sure.
I spent many years kind of hiding my roots, like not talking about some of the things that, really have created who I am today. And putting those words on paper and then reading them again and again and again as you're editing the book, it's liberating.
Yeah, I grew up in a very small rural town in Nebraska, so we had 365 people in my town, a person for every day of the year, and you know, it's. I always tell people it was kind of like a Norman Rockwell upbringing. There's a lot of drugs and problems that have hit small towns. When I was a kid, I didn't really feel like it was a bad place. We didn't know what we didn't have, right? I mean, sometimes when you don't have much, you don't realize what you're missing.
You nailed it, actually. I
Yeah,
actually talk about that when I'm describing Crystal, Michigan, which is the town I grew up in. We probably had less than 1,000 year-round residents. We had a lake there, so it would definitely,
yeah,
in the summer, we would get a lot of tourism. But I talk about that like there wasn't a big have and have nots, like
yeah.
everybody have not, right?
Pretty much,
You
yeah,
know? But that town as well, and my brother still lives in that area, has definitely been hurt by the drug
yeah.
epidemic. But that wasn't super relevant when I was a kid.
No, yeah, I didn't think so either. And we had people on welfare. We had ranchers who were very wealthy, so it was kind of like you had this really interesting mix. I always tell people that we lived in a very diverse culture because we had both Protestant and Catholics. That's about that's about as broad as it got. But it
Awesome.
sounds like you and I
That's
grew up in a similar environment. I mean, I there was a lake near us too, and it's just as you're talking, I'm like, did you grow up where I did? So
Yeah, I mean, practically, it's all cornfields, hay fields, soybeans,
yeah, yeah,
cows,
same
cow
here.
for days.
Wheat fields, but so it's interesting though because I grew up always wanting to own my own business. And for many years, I was reluctant to do it because I didn't grow up around entrepreneurs. I mean, entrepreneurs didn't exist in our town. There was people that owned shops, but they were struggling like everybody else. I had an aunt and uncle that always inspired us. But was there anybody growing up that you saw as an example that it later inspired you?
That's a really look at you bringing the hard questions right out of the gate. Um, there were a couple of teachers,
Uh-huh.
definitely. I didn't know a lot of people with a 4-year degree, right? My teachers, a doctor maybe if I would go to the doctor, which we didn't go to the doctor a lot. We didn't have insurance and we didn't have money for that. So, um, but there's one teacher, and I actually personally reached out to her on Facebook and sent her a thank you. Probably, I don't know, 10 years or so ago, but she was my drama teacher. And also, um, I was on the forensics team. I was I was more on the shy side when it came to being in front of large groups, but she inspired me to get out there, have a voice, speak. Which now look at what I do. I get on stages all over the place. I mean, I've been on stages in Israel and London a couple of
Mhm.
times, um, and it really started with her in that drama class and that
Yeah.
feeling you get when you get in front of people and they respond, and that you feel like you're able to impact somebody positively through your words or through your content. So yeah, I would say my teacher. But we had the same thing. There weren't there. I think we had actually more entrepreneurs that owned like electrical, plumbing,
Yeah.
auto shops. They were small business owners, but I never knew anyone who started a company that became this multi-million-dollar thing. But definitely hard work was at the core of everyone in that area. I mean, if
Yeah.
you didn't work hard, you didn't survive, right? Um,
Exactly.
so
It's interesting because you if you watch movies of any kind, especially in the 80s and 90s, there was quite a few movies about inner cities, and you always talk about the kids that got out. They made it out, and you and I both grew up in an environment where that to a point we got out because there are people that stayed, and their lives probably didn't dramatically improve. And
yeah.
I mean, and that's the reality. Now, all that aside, I mean, obviously, hard upbringing. but you've risen above all that. Was there a point in your life where you're all of a sudden a switch flipped and you said, you know what, I believe I can do this? Did you
Mm.
see confidence in yourself, or did it just over time kind of develop through your school and career?
Yeah. Ooh, another good question. I often say I weave in and out of confidence, still to this day, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I am somebody who oozes confidence. I have to give myself pep talks constantly. That's just part of my narrative, and that's something I know about myself. But the big driving force for me, I got married very young, fresh out of high school. And when I was 4 months pregnant, I was going through a divorce. And I had this baby and I was alone, right? And I looked at this baby who's now 25 years old and thought, oh my God, I've got to get my poop in a group and figure this out so he
Yeah.
can have different opportunities. And that was a big catalyst for me, huge. I had him, and immediately I talked about this on LinkedIn. Like when he was 2 weeks old, I went for an interview at a bank to work in their call center doing telesales. And I was number one in sales for 8, 9 months there because it was out of necessity. I was getting Medicaid, food stamps, welfare benefits. The bank paid minimum wage, but the commissions were the difference between me making rent and not making rent. And that's where it really started for me. It was just this hunger. And then I
Yeah.
continued to work full time as a single mom, landed a job that just changed my life, tripled my salary, got off from the welfare benefits, and decided I was going to get my degree with a child because they required a degree at this company, but they hired me without it porque yo puedo hablar en español, and they needed somebody who could speak Spanish. So, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, and you could have used all of those experiences as excuses. And I unfortunately a lot of people do. And we're talking this show's really focuses on sales and sales leadership aspects, enabling the buyer to be part of the buying process and not necessarily be sold to. But all of that stems from this idea that we have to first understand that we're speaking to people from a place of everyone's buying decisions, everyone's issues in life, they all stem from something emotional, right? They're emotional decisions. A lot of times, salespeople are out there selling facts and figures, they're selling features and benefits. So, a lot of what you overcame, obviously, there was a lot of emotion there, but it also allowed you to drive through and persevere instead of making excuses. And I think a lot of times in salespeople that are falling short on their numbers and they're not necessarily connecting, they're often making excuses and blaming someone else, blaming operations, blaming other areas. Doesn't sound like you took the opportunity to really blame. You took the opportunity to move forward. Yeah, some things happen. You got that job. That job changed your life. But was there something else that kind of drove you other than your son? I mean, were there other things that kept you moving forward?
Yeah, I am incredibly competitive. Very competitive. I always have been. Um I mean, last year at the company I'm at, we had a step competition here, and I mean, I think it was a 6 week step competition. Maybe it was 5 weeks.
Hmm.
And we were tracking off from our Fitbits and our Apple Watches. So it was automatically syncing to an app that they had set up. I came in at like 550,000 steps, and the next person below me was in the 300,000s. I was in meetings on my desk treadmill, just and after work I would go to the hills and I would put in a few miles, and I um I have this competitive bone in me, and I try to not let it allow me to bulldoze over folks because
Hmm.
when you are naturally inclined to be competitive, you have to check that and make sure that you're balancing that out. But I wanted more. I wanted
Yeah.
more. It's not that I'd seen more. I hadn't been in, some of the places that I've seen now. Um, I never could imagine I would get to experience the things that I had experienced. But I remember the first time I bought a new car, that feeling that I earned that. I'm like, ooh, I want more of that. I
Yeah.
want more of that. And I have many stories like that where the first moment I experienced leaving North America, like I didn't leave North America until about 5 years ago for the first time, right? Because I'd been busy like being a single mom. And then, I met my husband about, 15 years ago, then building startups. Like you can't just go and gallivant about Europe when you're building early stage startups. It just doesn't work that way, right? Um, but these experiences in these moments made me hungry, made me want more, and has just been a huge driving factor for me.
Well, and I think you just really tapped into something. So, you said you aren't somebody that exudes confidence, but you're super competitive. And I've always said that the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is movement. Creating momentum, taking steps forward. You can't think your way to success as much as we like to think we can.
That's
And
true.
it's often the biggest barrier. CRMs, slide decks, inboxes. Sales teams don't need more scattered tools. They need alignment. Collavia brings your sales playbook, AI coaching, training, and goals together in one platform for consultative B2B teams looking to close more deals with less confusion and greater consistency. Collavia, enabling buying in a world of selling. Visit Collavia.com. So it's about movement. Yeah, you're competitive, but that competition drove you to always be moving.
Absolutely. You nailed it. You really did. It's like every day you don't have to have this master plan on
Yeah,
how you're going to get there, but every day you have to do something that moves you forward. And if you do that every day, you're going to get better and better and better.
exactly.
And that's the key.
It brings up a great example, just as simple as reading 15 pages a day. Every day, read 15 pages. Doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not a lot. But at the end of the year, that equates to approximately 20 plus books. It's amazing how much we can accomplish by just taking small steps every single day. Three key goals or three musts every day that you get done, and you can look back and look how much progress you had. To-do lists are great because we all have to have things we check off, but sometimes we live and die by our to-do lists, and to-do lists we go, oh, I went and got milk, or I you know took the car and got it washed, and you check those things off and you feel really good. But the things that you should have gotten done, you move to the next day because you didn't have time, and then over time those get watered down.
Yeah.
It's like if you can set 3 or 4 priorities a day and accomplish those, everything else you look back and you go, "Man, look how much I accomplished in a year's time."
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm a big fan of OKRs, objectives and key results. And I lead my team by the OKR methodologies, but I also have my own personal OKRs, right? My own personal objectives and key results that I update regularly. And right now, one of my big ones is just to become um, more fluent on artificial intelligence because that's like so relevant. It's in every corner. And I don't want to, look, I have a 25-year-old. I don't want to get to where I age out of being able to be
Yeah.
competitive. And unfortunately, it's not going away. So I have my own personal goals and then my professional ones that I keep in format of OKRs.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. So your book and all the things you went through, all these steps you've taken to move forward, and you've gotten yourself in some really great places in your career. But you're in a really challenging area of business. I mean, you're in Silicon Valley, one of the most competitive spaces in the country, and you are dealing with some very high enterprise level type of clients. What are some of the challenges you see today in working with enterprise level customers that you maybe didn't see in previous times?
Yeah, so everybody's budgets are definitely crunched. The purse strings are tightening. I'm not saying budgets aren't there for purchasing, they are. But I noticed that folks are being more and more deliberate about their spend. The ROI has to be there. You have to show them the value and the outcomes that you'll be driving from that purchase that they're budgeting. Also, there's a significant portion of change management that is sometimes missing in larger organizations, not by fault of anyone, just by how these large organizations are organized and move. You know, they tend to move a little bit slower. And so by default, one of the challenges is showing, you know, your customers and bringing them along on how to procure certain types of software. I'll call out AI because it's very relevant. AI, like everybody's starting to get these mandates from the top. Even some of the
Hmm.
largest logos out there, they're hiring VPs of AI, which means there are mandates that are going to be coming that they start using it not only within their four walls, but also to power their businesses. But they're getting very little help on how to figure that out beyond the mandate.
Yeah.
So that's coming to us, you know, in customer success and sales to figure out how do we bring them along? How do we help them think through change management? How do we help procurement teams understand how to procure this? How do we help legal teams understand the risks? The more that we can help them figure this out, the easier we make their lives because those mandates for them are not going away, but they don't quite know how to solve them.
Yeah. And I also think that because they don't know how to solve them, there's a lot of people out there positioning themselves as quote unquote AI experts, but, it's still a new area. And there's so many people out there that are still trudging along trying to find their path. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think there's a lot of companies out there that maybe AI isn't the reason that they're laying off staff, but they're using that as an excuse.
Yeah.
Tariffs was an excuse. Tariffs maybe was a reality for some companies, but I just think there's this massive amount of fear in the marketplace, whatever it's from. A lot of uncertainty about the economy. The media feeds us a lot of narratives that we can't always believe, and so we're, sometimes we grasp onto a message and we're like, "Oh my God, the world is coming to an end."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this
No, I
fear it's taking place. Do you see that in penetrating some of these companies you're working with, and how do we negate that or overcome that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think I mean, it would be illogical if all of us didn't have a little bit of fear because there's this certain level of unknown, right?
Hmm.
Like, we all don't know what the next couple of years are going to look like. I mean, quite frankly, I remember when ChatGPT really leveled up their game, and I had my first real conversation with it. I was like, "Holy smokes, this is revolutionary!" And then Claude came about, and now here I am automating complete workflows out of my day to day, having AI do things for me. It's just amazing. The first time I saw AI open up a Google sheet and fill in numbers and it said my name and it was
Yeah.
literally like populating a spreadsheet for me. I'm like, okay, this is really powerful. However, I get it. It can be very scary. I think you nailed a couple of things. One, I think the media is really hyping up the wrong thing. Yes, there will be some displacement in certain fields. There will be. Um, However, new roles are being created every day from AI. And also, I think the folks that I see get displaced the most are the folks that are not leveraging AI. I've said
Yeah.
this before, like AI is not going to replace humans. Humans that know how to use AI will replace the other humans, right? Like that's where we're at right now. Now, yes, I also agree that the media is picking up on X amount of layoffs due to AI.
Hmm.
The reality is a lot of these organizations, there was a huge hiring flurry in 2021,
Yep.
2022, and people grossly overhired. Money was cheaper. The investors were pouring money into these tech organizations. These tech organizations were hiring like crazy. And then all of a sudden, money is no longer cheap, and the investors are not putting as much money in these organizations, and they're like, oop, we hired over our skis. Some are using AI as an excuse to cover up that. And there are other reasons too, right? It's not just that. So yes, I do think there is a certain level of fear. I think there is some validity in some of these things, but here is what I tell folks. You have to lean in. Make
Yeah.
yourself the expert with whatever domain you are in. I don't care if you are blue collar turning a wrench or you are at the tippy top of this massive organization. Figure out what it means for your field and become the leader
Yeah.
in the way that you can, the way that you can empower yourself and those around you.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned the hiring and the money situation with companies over hiring. I lived in San Francisco at the tail end of the .com era, and I think it was around 2002. There was a commercial that used to play on the TV, and this was a time when people were buying houses on stock options. That
Oh
overnight, those
goodness.
stock options became like basically paper that wasn't even worth burning. But there was a commercial that used to play on the TV, and it was this guy. He goes, yesterday you were a 21-year-old millionaire, and he's got his glasses on, he's hanging out with his girls, he's dancing in the club, and today you're just 21. It shows him slumped down in the back of a bus looking around, and just like his whole life had just changed. But that was a time when money was being thrown around like crazy, and then the rug got pulled out. This time I don't see that happening. I think that, yeah, I think there's layoffs. I think there's going to be a lot of disruption, but you're right. I think opportunities are abound. Are there ways that you would encourage people to capitalize upon this? You mentioned become an expert in your field, but what does that mean? Does that mean become an expert in leveraging AI to do your job, or what are you envisioning?
It's a really good question. I don't know if I have a perfect answer. Um, it depends on what role you're in
Mhm.
and what your next step goal is, right? The one thing I do agree with, and before I dig in on some ideas and what folks could do, is there are a lot of folks out there right now selling consulting on AI. Check them out heavily before you hire them,
Yeah.
right? There's no way anybody can be coined an expert, I think, right now. It's too soon. Now, there are people that are very good at doing what they're doing, but are they experts? I don't know. I'm a little
Yeah.
skeptical. Um, but in regards to how people can approach this, uh, there are so many free resources out there right now. Take advantage of them. Claude, which is the Anthropic tool. Anthropic has a full university. You can go online. I think it's free. I think all of it's free.
Wow.
Um, and you can download Claude for free. You don't have to pay for it, but there is, I think, a $20 a month package that you can pay for and get access to the higher level models. The same with ChatGPT. I find ChatGPT is really good at conversational things, brainstorming. I'll turn it on when I'm walking and just, have a conversation with it. Like, I'm thinking about building out this process for blah, 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 what do you think? Or I'll say, ask me the questions that I should think about when I'm doing blah, blah, blah. And the same with Claude, right? We have this skill that actually a consultant built that says "grill me," and if you type in "I'm thinking about doing ABC XYC, grill me," it'll ask me all the questions that I should be asking myself before building this process or creating this workflow or whatever it may be. So just doing, like, peel off a couple of little things,
Yeah.
right? Don't start big. Start small. Start small. Are you doing the same thing every week? Are you pulling the same report, analyzing it every week? That's a really good thing to have AI do for you. That's very repeatable. Are you reaching out to prospects with the same kind of email, or I don't know. I'm just trying to make this more
Yeah.
relevant for sales folks. Um, Little things, though. Start little, and little things add up to be a lot, and that will slowly make you the expert.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. So I've got a soundboard that I use, and I had made some adjustments and it wasn't sounding right. And so I took a recording, dumped it into ChatGPT and said, help me work through and figure out my settings. It did an amazing job. I uploaded a video of myself swinging the golf club at the driving range, and it gave me perfect feedback on what I should be working on. Stuff that we don't always think about, a little bit out of the box. And it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow. It's like I'm using it to crunch some numbers or come up with some ideas, but there's so many things we can explore. Now,
I took really quickly, I took a picture of my side yard. It needed to be remodeled. And I took a picture of it. I gave it the measurements and I said I needed to be dog friendly because I have
nice.
2 little Shih Tzus, and it went and designed it, and we put it in place, and it looks beautiful.
That's amazing. Yeah, my girlfriend did that with a house we were looking at. She didn't like the front elevation. She wanted to know what it would take to refresh it, and it came back with some spec drawings of some simple changes that would like absolutely transform the home. And it was like, wow, this is incredible. So I know I told you at the top of this that we wouldn't go over 30 minutes, but I do want to touch on one thing before we leave, because I think I'd be missing an opportunity with your area of expertise. You have quite a bit of knowledge about value cycle and how that leads to, drives customer success. Can you touch on that a little bit as we close this out?
Yeah, I'll keep it super simple. Um, Especially in times when customers are scrutinizing every dollar that they are spending. It is so crucial that your customers are realizing value in their investment, not just realizing it, that they know they're realizing it, right? So the value cycle is very simple. You collect a goal, you partner with them to drive the outcome of the goal, you report on that goal through your business review or whatever method, and then you collect a new goal and you do it again. Now, I want to be clear about something. Goals are not tactical things like train Bob. Great. What's the outcome? What's your why? Kind of dig in on your 5 why process and figure out what is the core that you're trying to solve for. How are you going to measure it? What are your customers measured on when they get their performance review? What KPIs are they held accountable to? How do you pair up to those KPIs? How can you drive value for those KPIs, right? That's where the goal is. That's where you make sure you have a line item on their budget always, because you're printing ROI and you're making them look like rock stars internally. And that's the value cycle.
And isn't that the key right there? When you're selling top down, you think about the C-suite. It's less of a, of course, nobody at the C-suite doesn't want to look good, but selling down through the food chain of an organization, you get somebody who's in a mid-level management position or some sort of position where they want to look good internally. If you can make them look like a rock star, make them look like a hero in their own organization, they're going to be loyal to you for a really long time. That's the kind of stuff that I think so many people miss the opportunity with. Maranda Dziekonski, first of all, speaking of studying, of course, I spent a lot of time learning how to say your name, so I said it right. Hopefully I did
Did
justice for it today. So.
Perfect.
Can you tell people how they can follow you or connect with you?
Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. That's really the only place. I don't tweet. I don't do anything fancy. I have a Substack, but it's very neglected. So the best place to find
Yeah.
me is LinkedIn.
Boy, Substack is a commitment. If you're going to create
It really
Substack
is.
content, it's like short form content just doesn't go very far on there.
Yeah.
Maranda Dziekonski, thank you so much for being on the Enabling Buying podcast. I knew you'd be amazing. So thank you again, and good luck with your book. And we're looking forward to reading that when it comes out.
Thank you.